Yo, what is up, guys? It's Notice back at it with another Magma exclusive video here on the LlamaVerse channel. And in today's video, we're going to be going over some concepts in the NFT market that you can use to be able to make some nice profits on some well-established projects. Let's get straight into it. So I'm going to be looking at 3 collections. It's going to be a short video, kind of give you an idea of what we've been doing with these collections, and you can use this with other collections as well. This usually works good with well-established collections. Can also work with degen type of collections that come out and have a lot of volume. Things you should be watching, looking at, kind of like that. So the first one is Lil Pudgys. Lil Pudgys obviously is going to move when Pudgy Penguin moves. It's going to sit around 10% of that collection. So right now, Pudgy Penguins is at around 5 ETH. Lil Pudgys is around, 4.5 to, or 0.45 to 0.5. So it's always going to be in that range, right? And it acts as a cheaper entry into the Pudgy Penguins ecosystem. And, having a floor price at 0.45 out of the 20,000 collection in itself is pretty sick. Try to get a good entry. That's what a lot of people struggle with. They just enter blind, right? Which obviously sometimes can work, but if you want to enter a project into the long term and hold, wouldn't it be good to get an entry where at worst, let's say something bad happens or anything, you'll be able to break even, right? The good chance you'll be able to break even, but at best, or good chance, you'll be able to make profits, right? So one thing you want to look at is, obviously, this is a second collection of a collection that's already out, Pudgy Penguins. It's under that, kind of like its baby. So, and it sits around 10% of that collection, value-wise. So we can see here, for a long time, these were just sitting at 0.15 to 0.2 ETH. This was when Pudgy Penguins was sitting around 1 ETH, I think, around that mark. Then we had, the new ownership. Lucas took over. The whole vibe changed. They started to push their marketing a lot more. And it was just, blowing up everywhere. Whales getting in, everybody getting in, right? So let's take a look at the chart. So right here, nothing was really happening here. We saw rares get bought up here. Nothing crazy, right? Some rares. But here we're holding this range. So this obviously would be a good entry here in itself if you believed in the project. And it ended up being a good entry because these went almost to like 1 ETH almost, like 0.9, 0.8. So then this in itself is a good entry, right? But let's say you didn't enter here and they pumped already and now you're looking for an entry. So we can see here that they had a move up to 0.4 right here. And then they fell back down to around 0.25 right here. They fell back down to around 0.25 right here. They fell down to around 0.3-ish right here. 0.25, 0.3-ish down here. So right here, this starts to act as an area of buying pressure, an area where people tend to not undercut, in the area where people tend to buy, right? And it held that for a good amount of time. Had little pumps up to like 0.4 each time, right? But we eventually broke that, right? So now this area where we couldn't get over, right here around 0.4, now that turns into a new area where people buy after this pump. So this pumped up to like 0.7, 0.8, right? So now this new area, this I guess you can call it a resistance, where people stop buying, where people start undercutting, where people start, listing. Now that area, since we broke it and we broke past it and went up to like 0.7 to 0.8, now that area is going to act as a new area for buyers to come in once we fall back down from this high, right? So you see here, it acted as a new area where people stopped undercutting, stopped listing, and that became like a new area where people want to buy, right? So now we had a pump here again, right after, a little after, went back up to 0.8. And now we're back in this area here where most likely we probably won't go back down to like 0.2, 0.3 ETH again in the short term. And this could potentially, non-financial advice, could be a good entry just based off previous data we're looking at. We're matching up with this dip right here that we had before. So is there a chance that we eventually can break 1 ETH and then that point, this 0.8, 0.7 ETH turns into a new buying area? Potentially, it could. I know a lot of people that think Pudgy Penguins will go to like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 ETH floor. That could happen. Maybe when the market turns around, big news announcements, etc. So it's just something to keep an eye out on, and that's something I look at when trying to find entries. I look at what areas do people start listing, what areas do people stop listing, what areas does volume slow down, what areas we see dips, what areas we see people / smart money get into. And that's how we made profits on Deadfellaz. So Lil Pudgys is one that's in progress that we recently talked about in Magma. And now we're going to look at Deadfellaz here. Deadfellaz was one we actually made a play on earlier, and we already hit our exit and profit here. I accidentally opened up my Timoth. Shout out Timoth. Let's take a look at this one here. So we made this call. I believe we made this call Magma in December. We made it right here. It was December 18th. I remember exactly. Look at this chart, right? There's not much volume, but it never went under 0.5 in August, and I think even before that. But we had these pumps randomly up to 1 ETH each time, right? So look at this. 0.5 held, pumps up to 1 ETH, right? 1 ETH is that area where it starts to, slow down, holds 1 ETH for, maybe a couple days, week or two. And then as the market kind of slows down a little bit, it goes back down to this 0.5, right? So hit this 0.5. We didn't enter here. Ran back down to 0.5 here. And it kind of held this area. It had small little pumps here. You can see up to like 0.7 from this 0.5 here, 0.5 here. Then small pump here. And this is when I looked at it here. We saw a decline and then touched 0.5 right here on December 18th, 19th. We're pretty close, like 0.51, 0.52. And that is where we entered. Our exit was like 0.80 plus, which we hit right here. About a week later, we hit. So you could see the patterns, right? There's patterns in these well-established collections. There's patterns in this because, whales, smart money, people that actually want to invest into a project for the long term, they're not looking to enter up here, right? Unless there's like insane amount of FOMO or some big announcement or something, right? They're looking to get in on these dips to where usually it holds. Right? That's what people are looking to get into. People smart money isn't looking to get up here. They're not looking to accumulate into a project they believe in at an area where you see a dip, right? That's not where smart money is looking to get into. They're looking to get in at 0.5 here, 0.5, 0.5. You could have sold for almost a 2x here. Now we're kind of holding this range right here, not really seeing a dip around 0.6. We could see this go straight up, back up to 1 ETH, maybe. This is one we banked on and one we hit and used the same logic as Lil Pudgys, right? We just looked at where areas it held, where areas it never really dipped under. We waited for it to hit that area. We got in, looked for this exit, hit the exit here. Simple as that. Next one we want to look at, this one is a little more DJing, right? And we hit this one pretty well. Called this out in Magma. This is Createra. Free mint, kind of took that digi free mint game route. Low supply too, so it just had huge room to run, right? So we missed this entry here, right? I was not around. I was out of town here. Sadly, I missed this entry. But it is what it is, right? You just got to move on. But we still made profits. When we came back here, it was late night, like 5 a.m. We saw this pump up. And it was sitting around this range when I got on my computer. And I was like, okay, there's not a lot listed here. The walls are super thin. We saw a hit like 0.8 ETH 3 times right here. Look at this, 0.8 ETH had a dip to like 0.65. 0.8 ETH had a dip to 0.65 and it hit 0.8 ETH here before taking off, right? Even with the like 0.75, 0.7 here and dipped to like 0.6 again. So we hit like this close 0.7, 0.8 ETH multiple times right here. There's like a small one in between here, right? So what did I do? We hit 0.8 ETH, hit 0.8 ETH, hit 0.8 ETH, never really broke it. Each time we got close to it, volume slowed. This is where things changed right here though. I saw we were heading up to hit 0.8 ETH again for like the 4th time, but the difference is I was keeping an eye on pending transactions and volume. Pending transactions look like, to me, you can see on NFT Nerds and also like NFT Flip, they show you the amount of pending transactions per minute, and you can also see them on the item. When I saw that, when I saw it creeping up to 0.75, 0.77, 0.78, hit 0.8, pending transactions were actually increasing, not slowing down like they were here. They were increasing. So that told me, okay, This supply is super low. You know, this is a free mint hyped kind of collection. A lot of whales are looking into it. If we break this 0.8 ETH right now and these pending transactions are actually, you know, go through and they're legit, we're shooting up to 1 ETH. I didn't think we would really hit, you know, like 1.7. But what I said in the call, I was like, I was like, look for a 0.8 ETH entry. We went to 0.8 ETH multiple times. We slowed down. This time is different. We're looking to break 0.8 ETH here because pending transactions and volume is increasing. And we did exactly that. We went past, we entered here. We went straight up. I think we got out around like 1.4 here, but they went to like 1.7. Can't really time the tops. And we were able to take profits. So it's always important to look at, you know, what areas are hard to break. Eventually, you know, if it keeps chipping at a wall that, you know, usually when it hits, it dips. Usually it will break it if volume is consistent. Another example is checks, right? So this one's pretty self-explanatory. Of course, it dipped back down, going back up to 1 ETH though. But, you know, that's how these kind of mints are. Another one real quick we'll check out is checks before we end off this video. This is another example of chipping out a wall. This is when we called out at like 0.2. Could have gotten at 0.4 again, but sadly out of town. But we still take advantage, right? It's not going to show. I got to go here. So how do we enter this one, right? So this one, you can see how many times we hit 0.2 ETH, right? How many times did we hit 0.2 ETH here? Yeah, right here. So we went up to 0.2 ETH, dropped, 0.2 ETH, drop, 0.2 ETH, drop, right? Then we held this 0.17 range, and this is where we entered, right? So we hit 0.2 ETH multiple times. Each time we hit it, we got up to like 0.2, 0.22. We instantly dropped. We never held. So we entered here, right? We entered here looking for another trade back up to 0.2 ETH plus, which is most likely, right? Because this collection still had hype. They have a burn thing coming up. Still has people wanting to get in. You know, whales buying in at these areas. We pumped up. What's the difference here, though? We held here, right? We didn't dip. We held this area here. We never dipped. So that's the main difference here of why this collection even moved further, up close to 0.4. So our entry was 0.17 and our exit was 0.35. Because when I saw this, you know, hitting 0.2 ETH that many times, 0.23 ETH, and dipping, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I think eventually, you know, we've hit it so many times. People that want to get out there are getting out. But the whales are still buying in at like the dips. I think we'll eventually break that. So my entry here was 0.17 and our exit was 0.25 to 0.35. We pumped here. This was around 0.22. We held. This was the difference here. We didn't dip, we held. So that's a good sign that we'll move again. We held for a while. Volume came back in. We moved again. Went to 0.25, hit our first exit. And then we moved up to 0.35, hit our second exit. And got close to 0.4. But you can see now, right? Each time, going back to Lil Pudgys, another example here. We took forever to break this 0.2. We finally broke it. Now this 0.2 doesn't act as an area where we can't break. It acts as an area where people are buying in now, right? So we could potentially, you know, go back to, if we fast forward a couple weeks or whenever the burn comes out, 0.2 maybe could be a good entry, depending on if you'd like it or not. Again, I usually don't like getting back into projects after we trade them, but there's still potential here, right? Thin walls, holding up at 0.2, looking good. So I hope this video was helpful. Went over projects, went over, you know, my thought process and the techniques I kind of look at, trying to get good entries. And it's what a lot of whales and what people, you know, the smart money look at to accumulate into projects. That's what they look for. That's how they, you know, they get into projects. They look for those low entry areas that gives them a safer entry, but, you know, more profits if it really does move how they think it will. So I hope this was helpful. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and drop a sub, like, comment, share the video with your friends. If you have any questions, go ahead and hit me up. I'm in Magma Discord. I'm always active. Hit me up on Twitter at The Only Notice. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.